Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Essays and Espresso podcast. Boken isn't here this time, but instead we do have...
Woo!
Shut up. But we do have a guest. We have PostMesmeric, also known as Alex. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Great to be here.
Great to have you. You on Twitter were like, I want to talk about Kingdom Hearts, and we were gracious enough to go like, let us indulge this man, his Kingdom Hearts. You know, let's do it.
Yeah, I've been on a bit of a kick lately with Kingdom Hearts, so
fair enough. I mean, I went through that too not that long ago, so I've beaten most of the game, so we'll have a lot to talk about. And of course, Acer is still here for some reason.
They can't kick me out, guys. I've grandfathered my way in. I noticed, Daniel, you never express gratitude or happiness to introduce me in these episodes. What gives?
You should give me a reason to.
Oh.
Damn. Wasn't expecting that, were you?
That was a savage one.
All right, so Acer, what have you been up to?
Not much. What have you been up to?
That's a lie.
Okay.
I can see right here. I see the Google Doc. You've got some stuff. Come on.
Yes. It's our recurring joke where we pretend when we're just dicks to the host.
Okay, look, podcasting is half like shooting the breeze, the other half like interpretive dance almost.
Just keep those plates spinning.
Yeah. I've continued watching Adventure Time, Daniel. A show which I think you would actually enjoy if you watched it.
I don't know about that, Chief. I mean, It just looks so ridiculous to me. Like, I don't know. I mean, and this is coming from someone that watches anime, so I don't know.
Oh my god, you do watch anime.
I know.
But yeah, there was one episode in particular. I've told you about the Ice King and his misadventures as this weirdo who's trying to steal princesses. Mm-hmm. And he's voiced by SpongeBob. There was this one episode where they dived into his past, and it was like, oh, well, he was alive thousands of years ago before the world went to hell. And he's like the last human survivor of the post-apocalypse, and he has a magical crown that keeps him alive.
Okay.
And it gave him the ice powers. And he's protecting this little girl throughout all of it. And I realized halfway through the episode, oh my god, is this an Alzheimer's metaphor in a cartoon for children? And then it was. And it was pretty good.
Okay, that actually sounds pretty interesting. I'll grant you that.
Yeah, it does. But it's 5 seasons in. That's when the show gets kind of mature. Before that, it's just, oh, we're the businessmen, and we love business. And then they hassle the guys with business somehow.
Okay.
There's another episode where
I've seen my share of episodes of that show, and it's kind of all over the place as far as what the tone of the show.
Oh, it so is.
I've only seen like bits and pieces because of my younger sister. She watches it, and occasionally
maybe she should be on the podcast.
Okay,
the cooler Santos child.
She lives in Orlando right now, so you know.
Not like they have internet in Orlando.
Well, no, I'm just saying she doesn't live with me anymore. But yeah, I remember occasionally walking in. And just the most random stuff would be happening. I'll be like, what is this? What is this show? I don't get it.
But it's a good show, man. What can I tell you?
It's pretty good. I mean, I guess just full disclosure, I originally saw the pilot of it on the internet. And at first I thought, okay, this is silly, goofy, adventuring fun. Mm-hmm. And then once it got greenlit, and it became a full show, it started out in the same way. But then, as Acer said, once it gets further in the season, you realize that there's a lot of stuff that they clearly hid from the people who greenlit the show. This sort of the huge amount of lore of this world, and it gets pretty wild.
Yeah, that's also another thing about the show. It's super stupid. There's like hot dog princess and sis and stuff like that, but it's also very cohesive. Like they clearly mapped this wacky universe out before writing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Okay.
continue to recommend that show to you, Daniel.
Okay.
Even
all right.
though I know you never watch anything new.
I mean, I am, I guess, what they would call a weeaboo.
Get called out.
Weeaboomer.
Get called out, Daniel.
Yeah.
Never heard that before.
He only
kinda like
watches
it.
anime from the 80s.
Yeah, 80s and 90s anime. That's it, baby.
Didn't you once say that? No, you didn't say it. Bokin said you said it. That anime stopped being good after the 80s.
I never said that.
No, I know. Bokin said you said it.
That sounds like something Boken would say about me that isn't true.
I also played Spectre of Torment, the Shovel Knight adventure.
Ooh, yeah. Spectre of Torment.
Ooh, it's the best one.
It's so
I think.
good.
Yeah. It's really good. And
Like, even the story is good. Like, damn, they really went all out with Spectre of Torment. It's so good.
yes. And it plays so good.
Very tight.
We already talked about it, so there's not much to add. But I agree with you that it was a good game, maybe the best game of that year. When did it come out?
I mean, it's hard to
2017?
say because
This has
Shovel
been going
Knight has.
on for a long time. The whole Shovel
Yeah.
Knight saga. It's hard to like. I think it was.
I feel like
Was it?
I feel like Shovel Knight
second
only really
DLC?
finished like with Camp for the Cards. I think that's when the game like was finally done.
Yeah.
That was like 5
I didn't
years
like
or
it.
something.
Yeah, something
It's
like that.
2014 up until fairly recently. I didn't like King of Cards that much. I thought it was a real sort of okay after Spectre of Torment.
Some people say it's the best one. I don't
They're
know.
wrong.
I think that depends on how much you like card games, I guess.
Oh, I love card games. Have I ever told you about my love of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, I was like, are we going on a Yu-Gi-Oh tangent here?
Which I find it surprising then that you didn't like King of Cards. Did the card game not interest you?
It wasn't as deep as Yu-Gi-Oh.
I mean,
Nah, I just
it's
didn't play it for that long.
It's a side game in an already like pretty massive campaign. That's a little unfair.
I didn't have anything against the card game. It was more just I didn't think King Knight was that much fun to play compared to Spectre Knight, which I guess is unfair because it's probably really good on its own.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
that's the way it is.
Spectre of Torment's a hard act to follow up.
Yes.
All right.
I again ask you: do you want Shovel Knight 64 or Shovel Knight Maker?
Ooh, that's a good question.
See, I
don't know how.
I think Yacht Club would be very smart to do Shovel Knight Maker because then they could corner the Super Mario Maker market on every device.
And you would have 4 different characters to play as opposed to Mario Maker. You only have Mario.
Yeah, but you also have technically 4 different versions of Mario.
I think Maker would be easier to do because I really don't know how Shovel Knight would work in 3D. I'd probably need to think about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
They keep teasing Shovel Knight 64. That was their April 1st joke last year. This is a trailer for Shovel Knight 64. Wasn't.
It's just that Shovel Knight is so integrated with the NES style of like platforming that I just don't understand how you can then turn that into a 3D platformer.
No. I would like to see 64 in that I want a Nintendo 64 platformer that looks like a Nintendo 64 platformer. That's my biggest gripe with what I played of Yooka-Laylee. It was too visually polished. I think there's something to that N64 art style.
I mean, I don't know. Hat in Time looked great. And that was
Yeah,
a really
Hat in
good game.
Time was definitely a better, a more polished example of I guess
Yeah,
that style of gameplay.
Yeah,
I think what made A Hat in Time work though visually was that I think it was going more for like the GameCube era of like
yeah, I
3D
agree.
platforming.
Yep.
I don't think Ukulele by comparison had as firm of an identity as what it was going for compared to A Hat in Time.
See, I think Ukulele would have been better. As this sort of nostalgic kickback or throwback if it had that N64 aesthetic to it, low poly, blocky figures. Also, really anti-aliasing on the text boxes, like in Banjo-Kazooie.
But are you asking for something that literally looks like an N64 game, or do you mean or do you mean more like the Banjo-Kazooie ports that we got on like the 360?
I'm talking just like they Shovel Knight looks like you remember those games looking like. I would like a Shovel Knight 64 or an N64 throwback to look like those games, to look like what you remember those looking like. So it'll be more polished, it'll animate cleaner, but it'll still really evoke that style.
Again, so you mean like the HD ports of Kazooie?
Yeah.
Like the game looks how you remember. It's just like really clean and crisp.
And with a better frame rate.
Oh yeah, that was especially a godsend for Tooie.
Oh god, I mean I love Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie a lot. I love both those games, but Tooie's frame rate on the Nintendo 64 really you can't go back after the XBLA port.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing you don't really notice as a kid. You don't think about it.
No, you don't. It's true.
But when you go back in as an adult and you have more of an awareness for these sorts of things, it's like, ugh, how did I put up with this? But okay, what is Dear Reader? I've been looking at this in the Google Doc the whole time. What is this, Acer?
Dear Reader is like the best book I've read in a really long time. The full name of the book is Dear Reader, the unofficial autobiography of Kim Jong-il as dictated to Michael Malice.
What?
It's Dear Leader, but with an R. So it's this guy. He's a ghostwriter for like celebrities. He took a vacation to North Korea, and he started talking to all the people there, sort of jotting down a bunch of stories about Kim Jong-il. And it's basically, it's this sort of fake history which the North Korean government gives their people to see. About how like Kim Il-sung, about how he was this majestic force who did these wonderful things, and they revert the roles of like America and China and starting conflict and stuff. And it's really interesting because it's basically just this sort of, it's this alternate universe which millions of people in North Korea are forced at gunpoint to believe.
That's insane.
It is insane. And it like the book. I think like the first thing that it says in the book, the first sentence is, because it's the story of Kim Jong-il. It reads, "I remember my birth very well," and then it goes into how he was born and how he walked down this magical mountain and crap. How the doctors, it is insanity, and I highly recommend that book. And that's what I've been doing since last we recorded. What have you been doing, Daniel?
Me? So, I beat Bayonetta 2 for the first time recently. And I liked it with kind of an asterisk. So I love Bayonetta 1. I think Bayonetta 1 is like one of the best like character action games ever made.
Yes.
And Bayonetta 2 for me felt like it was kind of more of the same, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And I did like some of the new additions, like Umbran Climax was a lot of fun, which is it's basically the Devil Trigger, but all of you, because Bayonetta has this thing where like you'll build up a combo and then the last hit of the combo is like one really big hit. Umbran Climax makes it so that all of your swings are really big hits. And the last hit is an especially big hit, which is cool. That's like my favorite thing that game added. But there were like a few things here and there that kind of bugged me. I thought it was weird that the game, and I've complained about this multiple times, but I think it's just weird that the game removed the Devil May Cry style of dodging. So like Bayonetta 1 had it so that you could do the Devil May Cry dodge, which is basically you're locked on, and if you're moving left or right, and you press the jump button, you'll do like, the dodge move. You do a roll, or she does a catapult or whatever.
Or a swoop or whatever.
And in Bayonetta 2, they said, no, you have to press the dodge button. And kind of my problem with that is it's like a lot of times I just found myself, because the way to activate the Panther transformation is to press the dodge button 2 times in rapid succession. So I ended up going into the Panther mode multiple times, and I had to like better train myself to not do that. And even towards the end of the game, where I got a lot better at it, I still find myself on occasion like accidentally triggering the Panther mode when I didn't mean to. So it's not like a game breaker or anything, but it was something that just kind of bugged me. I felt that the game's pacing in like the last stretch went to complete shit, because it goes from more like the structure of the first game, where you have like these nice big open areas where you can explore and you can find secrets, to the last stretch is just like boss fight after boss fight after boss fight, and it's just set piece after set piece, and like level design and exploration is just completely removed, and it's just like a mad dash to the finish. And I think that could have worked had it been like the last 3 missions, but like it felt like, and my memory might be messing with me, but it felt like it was the last like 5 missions or something like that, where it was just bosses and set pieces and very little exploration in between. I felt like the first game, and granted I haven't played the first game since it came out, so maybe my memories are messing with me, but I felt like that game was better paced. Like there was more of a balance between the huge boss fights and then the exploration and then the set pieces. I also found that while some of the weapons were really cool and fun, some of them weren't as interesting. Like I liked the dual swords, they were okay, but I didn't like them as much as the katana from the first game. Then you have like a really big hammer, which I thought was not that fun to use. Then you have like a scythe, which I thought was pretty cool. But just in general, like I felt like the weapons were more interesting and more fun in the first game. Overall, though, Bayonetta 2, I feel like there's like a subset of fans that hate Bayonetta 2, and they think Bayonetta 2 is just like an awful game, and I don't get that. Like Bayonetta 2 has its issues, as I've stated, but it's still a good game. Like
Devil May Cry 2.
No.
Uh-oh.
No, Devil May Cry 2 is a bad game.
Were you playing, I'm assuming you're playing Bayonetta 2 on Switch.
Yes, I was playing the Switch version, which I imagine is the best version.
Yeah, it's weird. Bayonetta has sort of become like a Nintendo exclusive franchise.
Kind of.
Well,
the first game.
I know that after what went down with the Wonderful 101, that might not be true in the future. But
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Who knows what the future might hold? But
Did you guys see...
I think Bayonetta...
sorry.
What's up?
Did you guys see when those guys were getting furious that Horizon Zero Dawn was coming to PC?
yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, just what a ridiculous thing to get upset about.
Like
I know.
I like consoles. I like consoles in so much as now there's an avenue to like you have to appeal to niche audiences, and that forces them to make very niche games. But to gatekeep games you like from other people, that's so stupid.
Like, they were saying that Guerrilla Games were, like, traitors to Sony. Like, oh my god. Like, careful there, buddy. You know,
It's
like,
not a country. like,
like I'm just concerned for all those people who are like so furiously bootlicking Sony. Like, they're gonna catch something.
yes. Can you
Like,
hear
I just-
me?
I
Can you
don't
hear this?
understand
Can
that
you hear this,
mentality.
Daniel? Can you hear that?
No,
No, okay.
what was that? The world's smallest violin.
No, I'm playing Demon Souls.
You're playing a game while we're recording.
I just started.
What's-
I'm fighting the Tower Knight.
I know some people who can multitask really, really well. I'm not one of them, so like, I'm all podcast here.
I appreciate, Alex, that you have the professionalism that Acer doesn't. And you're.
I
But
feel,
yeah,
I feel like this is a really. I feel like you're just singling me out here, Daniel, because you're upset that I'm playing a video game while we're recording.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, anyways, yeah, Bayonetta 2. If Bayonetta 1 is like a 10 out of 10, I'd say like Bayonetta 2 is like an 8. It's still really good. I think the haters need to like chill out. It's still a really good game. Yeah, I don't understand like the vitriol for it. But there are also some people that are like Bayonetta 2 is way better than the first game, and I don't really agree with that either. But you know, whatever.
Didn't Matthew Matosis say that Bayonetta 1 Bayonetta 1 is a better game, but Bayonetta 2 is a more consistently good game?
I think he said that in his second little Mega Micro videos thing when he was kind of talking about sequels, and
Yeah.
I guess from my perspective, like I love Bayonetta 2, but I do agree that Bayonetta 1 is a better game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like Bayonetta 2. It's really good, but I think it's missing some of the qualities that made like Bayonetta 1 like a more complete package, I guess. But yeah, still good games. Looking forward to 3.
Whenever that
and aside-
happens.
Yeah.
Wait, didn't that
Yeah,
already happen?
No, Bayonetta
3?
3
No.
got announced, but there has been a lot of silence from Platinum about anything related to that, you know, because supposedly Nintendo's publishing Bayonetta 3, but there's just been silence, and they say, you know, we're working on it, and we're like, I know we're really excited about it, but can't you tell us anything?
Can we see something?
It's like Elden Ring, where they're like,
Oh,
here's a
Elden
trailer,
Ring.
and then for
Well,
a year.
I feel like we've been waiting longer for Bayonetta 3 compared to that game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Elden Ring got announced pretty recently, from what I remember.
Yeah,
It's been like a
Bayonetta
year
3
since they
Bayonetta
showed the
3 was
trailer.
announced. Bayonetta 3 was announced when Bayonetta 2's Switch version was announced. So
I
yeah.
see.
So aside from that, I've been reading some books recently. So I finished a book.
Nerd.
Nerd. I finished a book about Steve Jobs.
Which one?
It basically the one written by Walter Isaacson.
I haven't read that.
So it basically goes through his entire life from like early childhood up to like his final days. And I thought it was really interesting. Wow, he's a petty asshole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, which I'm not sure if it is like totally fair, because I read another book called Creativity Inc., which was about Pixar.
Yes, I've read
And-
that one. That's by Ed Catmull.
Yeah. And something that was impressed upon me in that book was that, yes, Steve Jobs was an asshole at first, but that he mellowed out with age. And the Steve Jobs book doesn't really get that across. So I'm wondering if the author, Walter Isaacson, focused a little too much on the negative aspects of Steve Jobs' personality. That said, it was still very informative and very interesting. Even though Steve Jobs is a huge asshole, I think it comes more from him being like a very sensitive person. Like, he's very attuned with how he was attuned with how he felt. And rather than sugarcoat it, he's like, no, this is just how I feel. I'm just going to be honest about it. Which, personally, I think makes him an asshole. But at least there's like, you can understand where that behavior comes from. And it also gave me a lot of appreciation for his accomplishments. Like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that computers are the way they are today because of him.
Yeah.
He made a huge push for accessibility. And
he also had a really good grasp of how humans and technology just interact, which it goes to its accessibility, but it's also like the iPhone set the template which all smartphones followed. Like it has to look good, it has to feel good in your hands.
Yes. Yeah, that's all thanks to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he changed the computer industry, and then he changed the music industry, and then he changed the phone industry. Like, even if it wasn't all 100% him, because he did have teams, and the book does go into how he would occasionally, well, more than occasionally, would take other people's ideas and present them as his own.
What?
It's something he did.
No.
He did that multiple times. At the same time, even with that, in taking that into consideration, there was a lot of stuff that was his own ideas, stuff that he didn't just like cherry pick like that. And because of that, he's had a massive influence on how we consume media and how we interact with technology. Like it.
That's right.
His impact cannot be understated.
Imagine if he would have lived to see like social media become the behemoth it is today. He would have been a monster on Twitter.
He would have.
He would have.
He would also probably have been the richest man in the world.
He was already pretty rich, but that was actually one thing I really appreciate about the book, and is that a pretty strong impression I got from Jobs was that he didn't really care that much about money.
No.
He was actually the CEO of Apple. Well, technically interim CEO, which it was supposed to be temporary until he became the official CEO. He only worked for like $1.
Yeah.
Like literally $1 for like an entire year or two. And there was one conversation he had which kind of stuck out to me where like I think it was like one of the people that was on the board, they were like, oh, but what about the money? And then Steve was like, you don't need any more money. And the guy responded like, well, yeah, but still, we're making the money. Why should other people get the money? And Jobs would have to like wrestle with these people about like, hey, you know, it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about changing the world. It should be about making something meaningful.
Meanwhile, Apple today, they have like an iPod stand which costs like $100 or something.
Jesus.
They've betrayed his legacy, Daniel.
Yeah, but they're making more money.
Yes. So they won out in the end, and now he's dead.
Yeah, good book. I'd recommend it. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. I also read another book that was super quick, called Payoff. It has like a really long subtitle. I forget what the subtitle is. It's something about like the machinations of our motivations or something like that. And the book is basically about kind of breaking down the kind of like psychological and sociological mechanics behind what motivates us. Which I thought was pretty cool. It was a pretty short book, but I'm just gonna get across like one thing in the book that kind of stood out to me. The author composed a bunch of tests, and there was one test where he had two groups of kids. One group of kids were making Bionicle for like $2.
Oh, Bionicles are so great.
And then you had another group of kids that were making Bionicles for $2. But there was one key difference. So the first group, called the meaning group, every time they would make a Bionicle, they would deduct 10 cents. So that eventually there would be diminishing returns, and then the kids would stop wanting to make the Bionicles because they wouldn't think it's worth it anymore for the money.
Hmm.
But the second group, which was called the Sisyphus group, every time that the kids finished the Bionicle, they would take their Bionicles, break them apart, and then put them back in the box.
Interesting.
Even though both groups were making the same amount of money, the Sisyphus group would predominantly, those kids would stop much earlier than the other group.
Because they got tired of just taking them apart. It was meaningless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other kids felt as if their work had meaning to it. They felt as if what they were doing was being sustained, and they felt that there was worth in not just, making the money, but making the Bionicles. And the other group, since they saw their work was actively being destroyed in front of them, this took away that meaning. And this apparently taps into like a psychological part of our brains where we want to leave a legacy. Something that exists beyond our lifetimes. That's why so many people throughout history have been doing so many like things that would land into the history books because they want to feel like their lives had meaning. And that meaning goes beyond what we get in the moment. It goes into, what we leave for like generations to come. So I thought that was a pretty good book. I liked it.
Did they say where you can go and make this money building Bionicles?
I'm sure you're all about that.
Oh, you know it.
So there's a third book I got into, but I'm not going to go into too deep just because I only just started it. But it's called Acid for the Children. It's written by the bass player for Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea. And it's basically just about his life up until he formed the band. So not a lot to talk about there because I think I've only read like a chapter or two. But that guy lived a pretty sad life. Like he was he's kind of like a depressed kid. So it's going to be interesting to see how that translates into the music later on. But yeah, that's it for me. Alex, what have you been up to?
What have you been up to, Alex? What do you want to talk about?
I've mostly been listening to a lot of music. I guess as far as like the stuff that I've been listening to most frequently, I've been listening to a UK band called Loathe. And if you like the band Deftones, you should probably listen to Loathe because they sound a lot like Deftones.
I actually haven't really listened to Deftones, to be honest. Even though that's a band that I've just heard of a lot, but I've never like dived into their music.
Because they started out as like a nu metal band, like Korn, or I'm trying to think of like other examples like them. But then they started
System.
Well, System of a Down they're kind of their own thing, but I could go on forever about that. But
yeah, they kind of are. You're right.
Deftones released an album in 2000 called White Pony, which is sort of their magnum opus because it introduces a lot more atmospheric stuff. There's they introduce elements of trip hop and shoegaze, and the one song, probably my favorite Deftones song, is called Passenger, which has Maynard James Keenan from Tool on it. But this band called Loathe, they sound a lot like Deftones. Like they go from really heavy stuff to kind of more atmospheric stuff. I'm giving it a few more spins. before I actually kind of make up my mind on whether I really like it or not. So far, it's
Cool.
I've listened to it a little bit, and it's pretty interesting. I've been listening to new Denzel Curry with Kenny Beats. I've been going back to that Moron Police album. I know that.
Oh yeah, A Boat by the Sea.
Yeah, that was one of the situations where I just randomly saw it in the release schedule, and I just gave it a try, and I'm like, wow, these guys really like anime. Because so much of their music has this very bubbly, energetic. Like, I think on one of their YouTube channels, they actually made an AMV using their own music.
Yeah, a One Piece AMV.
Which I think is really cool. It's a great album. It's one I kind of go back to. I right when I heard it way back last year, I thought this is really different, and I really like it. It was probably one of the best rock albums that I heard last year.
I was really shocked at how anime it was.
But
And it also made me think, like, well, what's wrong with that? Like, why don't other bands capitalize on this type of sound?
I'm not entirely.
Like, these guys did it, and it sounds great.
Yeah, it's a really interesting album. But instead of music, I've been playing a few games. The one game that I just finished yesterday was a game called The Pedestrian. This was a game that was
never heard of it.
This was a game that was kickstarted. I'm trying to think, like maybe several years ago, because it's been in development for a while, and it's sort of a puzzle game, but you play as like the person that's like, if you're you see a road sign, like a pedestrian crossing sign, you see that little person, or like the figures that you see like on restroom doors or something like that, and you play as that person, and you basically transition from different road signs or like computer screens, and it was kind of clever to me, just seeing how they're able to take this idea and sort of translate it across, you going to different road signs, and then when I played it, it was about $20. I was really excited to play it because it's like, this is a really interesting idea, because you would move signs around to sort of make new paths and solve puzzles. And I finished it last night, and I thought, these puzzles are good, but they really don't take so much advantage of the whole road sign aesthetic as I thought it would. So it was a little bit disappointing. I think that the puzzles were well designed. They were very challenging. Some of them were real head scratchers, but I was able to figure them out. And I was kind of left a little bit wanting. The game's not that long. It was about maybe 3.5 hours. And I think that if you're looking for, like, a quick, breezy puzzle game with some pretty good challenge, I think it's worth a shot. It is a little price. Okay. It is a little pricey on the $20 side of things, but and I don't think there's much replay value either. I think once you finish it, you're done. But it's called The Pedestrian. I know it's on Steam. It's I don't know if it's on any other systems, but I know it's on Steam because you have to do a lot of pointing and clicking, directing where each sign leads. It was
Gotcha.
it was an okay game. I just kind of wish there was a little more to it.
Gotcha. Okay. I might check it out if it's on sale.
Yeah, I mean, it just came out very recently. I think it was at the end of January. I was watching a Get Indie Gaming video where they kind of go through the big releases in the indie game scene each month, and I just saw it on there, and I'm like, wow, this is a really creative aesthetic, and it just the puzzles just didn't fall flat. I just kind of wish they did a little bit more.
It kind of reminds me of a game called No One Is Playing. I don't know if you've heard of it.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know exactly what it's about.
So that's a game where I felt like the core idea is super cool, but I guess the developers wanted to take it in like a totally different direction. Didn't really capitalize on that idea, which is, it's a game where it's supposed to be like this multiplayer game, but no one is playing. So you find yourself like walking around this like multiplayer
I think
map.
I know what you're talking about. I think I remember hearing about this too. Yeah.
This is actually really interesting.
Yeah, so like you're walking around this multiplayer map, and the only thing you can do is play capture the flag. And the more you play, like the more weird stuff is happening. But the thing is, after a certain point, it moves away from that, and it focuses more on like an augmented reality type of thing,
Right.
Where there's a bunch of puzzles to solve, but it has to do with like, oh, a text document appeared on your desktop, and then like, oh, you have to like figure out this puzzle, and then it will take you to like a different web page where you download a different game, and then that game will have like a code that you could take back to the original game. And while all of that's cool and neat for what it's trying to do, I really feel like that core idea of exploring multiplayer maps and weird shit happening,
Strong enough.
that's a strong idea. And I feel like more should have been done with that. I really hope someone takes that idea and they like really flesh that out and explore it further, because it felt more like a footnote in no one is playing.
You know, I'll look into that. That sounds interesting. I kind of like when games. I'm a sucker for sort of meta games that kind of address the fact that they are games in that kind of way.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. So definitely give it a shot.
But as far as other things I've been playing, like I just recently finished a video on Limbo, so I was playing Limbo earlier.
Oh, I noticed that you uploaded that video. I haven't watched it yet, but I fucking hate Limbo.
One reason why I kind of wanted to do that video is that this is the 2020 is the 10-year anniversary of Limbo being released, which kind of makes me feel old because I remember when that game first came out.
Oof, me too.
But I really haven't been playing too many other games aside from the Pedestrian. I'm still trying to I have an idea about what to do on the next video, and I don't want to really announce anything yet, but I'm just trying to find some games to play. I'm still visiting things like Dragon Ball FighterZ, playing Just Cause 2.
Hold on a second. You came onto this podcast because you've been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, yes. I just finished the Remind DLC earlier, right after the game came out. So it's been a little bit, but I can talk about Kingdom. I can talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's why you came onto the podcast.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about more Kingdom Hearts in general, but as far as the tricky part about the Remind DLC is that there are spoilers out just everywhere.
Sure. If you want to just talk about the series in general, go for it.
Oh, yeah. I've been playing Kingdom Hearts since right after the first game came out, because that was really the game that got me to buy a PlayStation 2. The first Kingdom Hearts, because I heard so many good things about it, and I remember seeing like the commercials on TV, and so I played Kingdom Hearts. I played Kingdom Hearts 2 when it first came out. I played Chain of Memories.
Wait, hold on a sec. Do you remember that Disney Channel commercial where like the kid was like sneaking into like Disney headquarters or whatever, and then he found Kingdom Hearts there?
I don't remember that at all, but now I kind of wish I did, because that sounds good.
Yeah, like he found some way into like Disney headquarters, and there was like a computer that was like telling him about Kingdom Hearts.
That's crazy.
And the computer, he's like, "Oh, show me the gameplay," and he's like, "Whoa!"
Because I've been playing. There was a big gap in between when I played Kingdom Hearts 2 and when I got caught up with the series, because I think Birth by Sleep. 358 over 2 days. I just kind of skipped a lot of those, and then once Kingdom Hearts 3 was kind of was going to come out pretty soon, I said, okay, time to catch up, and I just dove right back in, and I played all of the other games, and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for Kingdom Hearts 3, and I played Kingdom Hearts 3, really enjoyed it. I know that the Kingdom Hearts 3 has a mixed reception. I know that there are some people who genuinely hate the game, but I liked it. I still really think it's a great game, and so when I was really excited about the Remind DLC, and I guess I kind of have a bit of mixed reception on it, and I can't go into detail about why. I will say that this is a game. The Remind DLC is for the fans. That's if you have a lot of history with the series or you've caught up with it. Like I have close, in real life friends who just hate Kingdom Hearts 3. Like they just don't like anything about it. But
is that
I don't.
is that because it's like 20 years of hype or something? Or is it?
I think that probably contributes a little bit to it. I think that the hype, the long periods of time waiting, definitely changed how the reception turned out. I do think that contributed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, I feel like if you've been like a hardcore like Kingdom Hearts fan throughout the years and you've been playing all the games, then the wait. There really wasn't much of a wait because you've been entertained all those years.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, there are a ton of fans who only played 1 and then 2 and then 3.
Yes, that's completely a situation that I think that has a.
Does that?
In fact, one of my close friends just says, "Why do I have to play all of these other games when I just want to play 1, 2, and 3?" And I'm thinking, that's just kind of the price you pay when you get involved in this series. Like there's a lot of required reading.
It's funny.
Does the 1, 2, 3 chronology, does that work, or do you absolutely have to play the other games to get
You
it?
have to play the other ones.
Oof.
Otherwise, you'll
yeah.
have no idea what's going on.
It's funny. I had Acer play Kingdom Hearts 3 without playing any Kingdom Hearts game.
Really?
Yeah. I played up until Toy Story.
His experience amused me.
I played up until Toy Story, and when I saw Woody do like the anime talk to somebody on a beach, he was like,
Zemnis?
yeah, whatever. He was like, he was like tilting his head, and he was like, "Oh, Sora, leave Zemnis to me." It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, I love that moment.
And the
It's
guy
so
didn't
good.
sound anything like Tom Hanks.
That's Tom Hanks'
Yeah,
brother.
that's Tom
He
Hanks'
sounds
brother,
nothing
I
like
heard.
him. They should have gotten Tom Hanks. He has nothing better to do, that guy.
I think he does, but whatever. But I guess to wrap things up, I think the Remind DLC is really there's a lot of fan service. It's $30, and I think that unless, God, I really can't go into this without spoiling things, but if you're a fan of Kingdom Hearts and you just kind of want to see how things turn out, pick it up. If you're not a fan, you're not missing anything.
I wonder, if I were to play that completely blind, what would that experience be like?
Probably the same as Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, you're not going to know what the hell they're talking about.
Completely incomprehensible.
I once thought about doing that like as a video, just like, okay, I'm new to Kingdom Hearts. Let's go over this.
Well, it's funny that you say that because they just announced for the PlayStation 4 the all-in-one package, which has
Oof.
everything, including Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
So it's this huge, like, 7 or 8 game package. Then you can play them all and see what happens and catch up on this story that's been going on for who knows how many years.
I did like that about Kingdom Hearts 3. When it began, it was Kingdom Hearts 2.9. I thought that was funny.
I knew they would do that. I knew they would pull out the 2.9 at some point. I knew they would.
Because they made it 2.8 and not 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say this, though. I find it really interesting how you said that, like, your friend was complaining, like, oh, why do I have to play all these games if all I want to do is play 1, 2, and 3? But people don't make that complaint about Marvel movies. Like, I've never heard anyone complain, like, oh, why do I have to watch, like, Doctor Strange and Iron Man to enjoy Avengers Endgame or whatever?
I think that's mostly situation. True of just Infinity Wars and Endgame, though. I think the other Avengers movies sort of hold up, right?
I don't know. I haven't watched the original Avengers since theaters.
Oh.
Yeah, I have not paid attention to Marvel movies.
But you love superheroes.
No.
Wow.
I do like Watchmen so far, though.
Yeah. That's not this episode, though. We're talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I'm done talking about Kingdom Hearts for now. I still really love this series. It's
Have
one
they-
of those.
Yes.
It's one of those series that you kind of that is so just representative of its own era. Like the people who were playing through Kingdom Hearts 2 and really getting excited when it was coming out, you know, they were teenagers. They were like, "Oh my god, Sora's wearing black. That's so cool." Or Sora has 2 keyblades now. That's so cool because 2 is bigger than 1. And it was everyone was kind of just going through that awkward adolescence. So when we saw Kingdom Hearts 2, everyone's like, "This is so cool. This is so me." Because everyone, you know, a lot of people who kind of grew up with the series were, you know, otakus who thought, you know, things being anime is so awesome. And now that we're all kind of grown up, and you know, we still like anime. A lot of the people who like Kingdom Hearts still and are still sticking with it, those are those same people who are kind of self-reflecting and looking back on how goofy Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of got at times.
Yeah.
That's why I just think it's very representative of its own era,
yeah, because now we're looking back with student debt and, you know, bills to pay.
Because when I replayed Kingdom Hearts 2 when I was making the Kingdom Hearts 3 fulfillment video, I realized I just got all nostalgic. It's a very nostalgic series, and I just really love it.
Yeah, when I replayed Kingdom Hearts 2 as well, like it was just so much fun. Like it's just a fun ass game.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, and this was something that bugged me even at the time. I don't know if you agree, but I always felt that the level design Kingdom Hearts 1 was really interesting, and in Kingdom Hearts 2, because the combat was so much better, I guess, and there was so much more to the combat, that they made all the rooms, like in every area.
I definitely agree with what you're saying. Kingdom Hearts 1 had way more interesting level design.
Yeah, and in 2, it's all these big, open, empty rooms, which made them a lot easier to fight in, but way more boring to explore.
Right.
And that's actually one of the things I really appreciate about Kingdom Hearts 3. While not all the worlds had great level design, like I think the Frozen world's kind of bleh, especially from a visual standpoint. But at the same time, like a lot of those areas are much more interesting and varied to explore in compared to Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It was just the level design was very different. You could tell that they wanted to make these combat arenas in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like Kingdom Hearts 2's combat, but, you know, I guess I like the first 2 games in different ways. It's just a silly series. It kind of just takes off into these crazy philosophical tangents, but it kind of I like to think that the developers are self-aware of just how ridiculous some of these things are.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've beaten almost every Kingdom Hearts game, with exception to the DS games. I never touched those. I've beaten the first one, the second one. I beat the GBA version of Chain of Memories. I beat Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, Fragmentary Passage 3. I didn't touch the mobile game because...
Fuck that.
Well,
yeah, no, thank you.
The mobile game, I guess, like Union Cross or something like that.
Yeah.
That apparently has like story significance.
I also saw that movie. Like,
yeah, it's a crazy story, and
I thought that like it came with the with Fragmentary Passage and the H. That movie was terrible.
Yeah, it kind of was.
Like, most of it was just, like, characters arguing and just doing dumb stuff. Like, the only character I really liked was the Master of Masters. Like, that guy was awesome. He was just, like, goofing on everyone and just, like, being a troll.
Yeah, at some point, like, you know, I could talk about spoilers forever, but there's just... This series is just... I swear they have to know that just how ridiculous some of this stuff is. Come on, Nomura.
Yeah.
You're in on this and you know it.
I don't know. Nomura's like an enigma to me because he worked on Final Fantasy VII, and he was actually the reason why Aerith, or Eris, however you want to call her, like he's the reason why she died, because he was explaining like, well, the game's major theme is life, so Eris's character had to die in order for this theme to come to fruition and to culminate in the ending of the game. And I'm like, that's very insightful. That's a great way of looking at it. And then he makes Kingdom Hearts, and I'm like, I don't know, Nomura, are you? I don't get you.
Didn't he originally intend for like all of your party to die in Final Fantasy?
That was not him. That was someone else, and he stopped them. He was like, "No, this is going against the game's themes."
Oh.
There was like a scene where like the party was gonna like re-enter Midgar from like a helicopter, and there was gonna be a helicopter crash, and like 3 of your party members were gonna die.
Oh, that's
and they were,
right.
And Nomura just came in and stopped it, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is stupid."
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts is pretty much Nomura's wild ride.
Yeah. Does he get Final Fantasy? Have we talked about this like 10 times?
Because he
maybe?
also directed the Advent Children movie.
Yeah.
Oh, Advent Children. That movie.
That movie is just a mess.
That movie, like, just watch for the crazy fights. Everything else about its story is just so convoluted and messed up. But if you just want to see like characters fly for no real reason, watch Advent Children.
Is it fair to say that Nomura is the muse of the video game industry, where like the early stuff was the good stuff?
That's an interesting perspective, because then once they start kind of doing their own thing and trying to go against the grain in some way and going against like their past principles, it starts to kind of fall apart.
Yeah. Because I went back and re-listened to Absolution and Origin of Symmetry, and those albums are still good. Like, it's shocking how those albums are still, like, amazing albums. And then I listened to, like, what was it, Singularity Theory or whatever, and I'm just like,
yeah, their new one, Simulation Theory or whatever it's called, is, I don't know. I have opinions about Muse, but
like, at least it was better than Second Law, which was complete.
Oh god,
garbage.
I hate Second Law so much. It's such a mess.
Guys,
I feel like Second Law may have had only like 2, and if I'm being charitable, 3 good songs, and the rest of it is just trash. Just, what is this? And I thought Drones was a misstep. At least Drones was better than Second Law. Like, God, it feels like the band lost their way. Something about the Resistance was when you started noticing the cracks, I think. Ugh.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think
Anyway.
let's. I was just gonna wrap up the Kingdom Hearts thing, and now we're starting talking about Muse. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing.
Okay, all right. Well, we're going to go on a quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss the essay topic of the week, which is how skill level changes perception. I will be right back, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is time to brew some espresso, organize our essay sheets, and discuss how skill level changes perception. This initially came up because I've been seeing kind of like this, these divisions in fan bases where predominantly fan bases are, comprised of people who play games a little bit more straightforwardly. But then you have these subsets where these are like high level skilled players that will break these games down to like the most minute of details, and they will be able to play these games in a way that
They
wasn't normally intended. And it got me thinking as to like how that level of skill, or at least this level of dedication to how these games are played, can change how the fan bases can view the same games. So part of why I wanted to talk about this was also because Alex is a big fan of Kingdom Hearts, and I feel that this is something that happened with the transition from Kingdom Hearts 2 to Kingdom Hearts 3. So, Alex, how do you feel about this?
Well, I do like Kingdom Hearts 3 a lot, but I do know that there are some deficiencies in how its combat works. But one thing that I did notice is that there is a huge dedication to how Kingdom Hearts 2 was a well-designed game and how Kingdom Hearts 3 wasn't a good design game. I don't agree with that. I think that they're both great games. But I don't know. I feel that there is a level of elitism towards people who are able to find every single minute detail of the combat in Kingdom Hearts 2 and using that level of microscopic analysis to basically dismiss everything that Kingdom Hearts 3 did well. And I guess that's sort of the negative extreme that comes from this. Like when you're able to bring out every single good thing about something and then compare it to something else that just probably does something maybe a little bit less, or at the very least differently, that it's really frustrating to just idolize this so-called perfect example of action games and just kind of put down everybody who didn't really see it the same way. And I do like seeing someone play a game, not necessarily just Kingdom Hearts, but maybe something like, Devil May Cry 5. Seeing people make these combo videos of how there's this crazy, intricate, just incredibly well-practiced techniques. That's cool to see. I like watching it. It's just kind of like watching someone pull off a really cool trick.
Yeah. Like, I love Donguri videos, especially. Like, he is such a high-level skilled player, and to see him do stuff in, like, I love his Tales videos. Like, when he's doing some crazy combo in a Tales game, I'm like, whenever someone says, like, oh, those games are all just button bashers, I can always just point to one of his videos and be like, no, there's so much more to these games than you realize.
And I guess my perspective on, like, I like watching these, but what I'm seeing from these sort of combo videos, like with Devil May Cry 5, when you see someone pull off this crazy combo and just get triple S on everything, just in even just like the void where you're practicing, what I get from that is like, wow, this is what happens when you have a lot of talent, a lot of skill, a lot of dedication,
Practice.
But in the case of Kingdom Hearts, I feel like there's a level of like, look at all of this stuff I can do when I practice. This is why what I like is good and what you like is bad. That's sort of the attitude that I don't really see that from Devil May Cry's. I mean, I'm not as invested in that scene as other people are, but
Okay.
I mean, go ahead and prove me wrong. I mean, I could be wrong here.
Okay, so this is something that's more so with Devil May Cry 4 specifically. So that game in particular, I think probably because the game was rushed out the door, Devil May Cry 4 has a lot of tech. There's something called inertia in particular, which allows people to do something called guard flying. So the way that the game works is when you do something that requires momentum in the game, that momentum is accumulated in the air. And if you really understand how it works, you can do something where guard, like using the royal guard in midair, will allow Dante to just like it literally looks like he's teleporting all over the place, where he's flying around in the guard stance, and it looks ridiculous. Like, it's clearly something that was not, you weren't meant to do this. And And because of stuff like this being removed, like in Devil May Cry 5, a lot of people who love Devil May Cry 4 really, to that extent that they know how inertia works. They know how reversals work. They know how all this stuff, is broken down. The fact that this stuff is missing in Devil May Cry 5 makes those people hate Devil May Cry 5. So I feel like the situation is mirrored in Kingdom Hearts 2 to 3 in that respect. Because I feel like, for all intents and purposes, Devil May Cry 5, when you look at it as a complete package, Devil May Cry 5 is undisputably a better game than Devil May Cry 4. Devil May Cry 4 is half finished. Dante's character clearly was not meant to be played in that way. Like, the weapons that Dante gets from the bosses don't even reflect those bosses. Like, you get Lucifer from Burial. You get Pandora from the Toad thing. I forget its name. You get Gilgamesh from the flower plant demon woman thing. Like, clearly those were other bosses that were made in the earlier phases of the game that got cut out, and then you were forced to run through the same environments in reverse as Dante. Like, it is obvious that Devil May Cry 4 is not a finished game. Devil May Cry 5 is a finished game. You're not going through the same areas again. Everything is polished. And I think because Devil May Cry 4 had that lack of polish, it allowed for all this tech. And since they took out all that tech in Devil May Cry 5, it's left those fans feeling cold. And I don't want to be dismissive of those fans, because I think there is merit to having that stuff. But I do side eye when I see fans say stuff like, Devil May Cry 4's combat is 1,000 times better than the combat in Devil May Cry 5. And I'm like, no. No. Inertia is cool, reversals are cool, but just because you're able to break the game and make it do things you weren't meant to do does not automatically make it better than this other game that has more content and is a more fully fleshed out product. So, yeah, it's kind of like a whole can of worms, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
but
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's cool. But I think this gets across like what the main thrust of this essay question is, which is basically how that level of skill and dedication and practice, where you see things totally differently from people who are playing the game more normally. Like, I am not a high level skilled player. I'm not going to be playing through the game on Dante Must Die mode and getting S ranks in every mission. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't have the skill. I can't do that. But But I don't think that should diminish my perception of these games. I don't think that should diminish my opinions, and I don't think that should take away from what I think makes these games great. And I don't think just because, you may be better at the game than me, that your opinions mean more. So I'm sure that you feel similarly, Alex, with like Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, it's like this idea where something needs to be technical in order to be good. And I think that if someone was, just because something is super technical and people are able to find every single individual detail about it, that doesn't mean that it's good for everybody. I guess that's kind of what I'm seeing with a lot of the attitude towards. And people are going to say this is like, you're a Kingdom Hearts 3 apologist for this. And I'm like, I kind of am. But I do understand that Kingdom Hearts 2, in my opinion anyway, is a better game, in part due to its slightly more technical combat, I guess. But there's always an extreme that a lot of folks take, where the people say that this just isn't as good as this one that I was able, something that I noticed with Kingdom Hearts 2 is that a lot of people really like Kingdom Hearts 2 because they were younger and they had all the time in the world to understand all of these technical details. That I was able to 100% the original Kingdom Hearts when I was a kid because I had all the time to do it. I had all the time to find everything and able to take on these super difficult bosses. I was able to do that. But now that I'm older, I don't have the time to 100% even Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, I haven't 100%ed that game yet. But I played it enough to, kind of get a general idea of how good it is. And I think that just the perspective of why we know all of these technicalities. You could probably say the same in, and this might ruffle some feathers too, but about like Super Smash Brothers Melee. That's when you were talking about how there are parts in Devil May Cry 4 that weren't supposed to be there, that were sort of these little, I guess, hidden moves that were just kind of put in there not intentionally. That reminded me.
Yeah, they're like oversights.
Yeah, that reminds me of like, the wave dashing in Super Smash Bros. Melee, and a lot of people say Melee is a better game because of those little technicalities and special moves that you can just kind of uncover due to some programming formatting or something like that. I just think that just because something's technical doesn't mean that it's automatically the better example of game design, I guess.
No, yeah, definitely. And I feel like there's a lot of... At the end of the day, I feel like these fans that... And again, I don't want to be dismissive because I feel like, again, there is merit to understanding games to this like degree. There is merit to, understanding the tech and being that good at the game.
Yes.
But you comprise 1% of the fan base. Let's be like brutally honest. If that, right? Like the vast majority of people are not going to be that obsessively dedicated to the games. Therefore, it makes more sense for the developers to appeal to the grand majority of fans who are going to play the game normally. Even someone like me who I've been playing Devil May Cry for literal like decades. Like I beat Devil May Cry 1 in middle school. I beat Devil May Cry 3 in high school. Right? I beat Devil May Cry 4 in college. I've been playing this series my entire life. And even I'm not on that level. And I consider myself a hardcore fan. And while I would definitely love if Capcom went back and decided, hey, we're going to patch Devil May Cry 5. We're going to put back inertia and reversals. I would love if they did that just for the sake of those players. Because I want everyone to be happy and I want everyone to enjoy the game the way that they want to enjoy it. But at the same time, can you really blame them for, like, not doing that? Can you really blame them for just wanting to appeal to, like, 99% of the fan base and not this one weird subset of fans that understand the game to a degree that most normal people just aren't going to care to do? I don't know. How do you feel about this, Acer?
See, I would like to take the other position. I agree with you, but I think that for a game like Devil May Cry, if that game's aspiration is to be the best fighting game it can be, surely an element of that is those reversals. It is those little exploits which people find, which give them that little bit of an edge over regular players.
Well, I mean, Devil May Cry is not a fighting game.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, if its
just
aspirations is,
game, I guess.
if it's, that's what I meant to say. If its aspiration is to be the best action game it can be, so I think I would rather. But see, Kingdom Hearts doesn't aspire to that, does it? It's more about like having fun with these characters, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's what it was initially put anyway.
Yeah, so I would say
actually, yeah, I was actually thinking like one of. It kind of seems a little weird to me with Kingdom Hearts because you can make the argument that Devil May Cry does push the player to like master the mechanics, but I don't think Kingdom Hearts does.
No.
And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because Kingdom Hearts is aimed at a younger audience and it is aimed at being a more casual experience. But like, doesn't Kingdom Hearts like fulfill its own goals better by not being super technical. I don't know. It it just seems a little weird to me because, like, yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 I thought was a fun game, even if it wasn't as technical as 2. But, like, I never played 2 on that, like, technical of a level. And I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I guess sorry, Acer.
No, I was just saying, yeah.
I think Kingdom Hearts... I feel like a lot of the technicality of the combat was not as intentional as it was just exploring Disney worlds. The combat was more a complement to it. It was just sort of, a good extra, the fact that it was so technical, at least Kingdom Hearts 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think comparing, Kingdom Hearts does not have, like you said, it does not have the same goals as something like Devil May Cry, because Devil May Cry, based on just the character Dante, the ranking system, that has its goals is to encourage the player to get better and meet those high standards that they put in, if they do so wish.
Mm.
Yeah,
Someone
like,
is they want you to be able to get that S rank. That's why the game ranks you that way.
That's why the game has a style meter. It's actively pushing the player to experiment within the game's own mechanics. Like there's systems in play that encourage you to do so.
Yeah, and Kingdom Hearts doesn't do that, and I think that's fine.
No.
I think that's perfect. I guess this just comes down to some people want to play the game in a certain way, and if the game doesn't necessarily service that certain way, then people consider it to be just bad. And in some ways, people just generally get offended that the game is not catering to their style of play, and I think that that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of how, like, in movies and in books, like, people will interpret the story in a certain way that was totally unintentional by the author.
Right.
And when a sequel comes out and it disregards, like, whatever that person's interpretation was, then it's like it's bad to them, even though, right? Like, it may be perfectly fine in its own right. And I'd say in that respect it's unfair of that person to be that dismissive just because it wasn't exactly how they wanted it to be.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that also kind of, well, it doesn't directly do it, but the element of it which I think is, see, I'm willing to listen to the argument that, well, this game fails to reach its greater aspiration because it stripped out a lot of the stuff. I'm willing to listen to that. What I'm not willing to listen to from people is just the rampant gatekeeping, where I don't like it because I have a very particular sensitivity to what this should be, and because I don't like it, you don't get to enjoy it either. I think that is completely pathetic.
And I've tried to make it clear multiple times, but, like, I want Devil May Cry 5 to have all that technical stuff that the Devil May Cry 4 fans want it to have, because, again, I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to enjoy the game, the way they want to enjoy it. And I think there's something to respect about those players that did, take the time to get that good. And, I think it's okay that they feel kind of burned that Devil May Cry 5 didn't have some of that stuff. But, again, it comes back to some of the childishness of some of the behavior of some people, where they're like, Devil May Cry 5 is a huge disappointing travesty, blah, 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 whatever. Like,
yes.
I think that's just being silly. It's being very dismissive and disregarding all the other great things that game accomplished. Similar to what, Alex, you were saying about fans of 2 to 3, where they weren't acknowledging any of the good things about Kingdom Hearts 3 just because it didn't have what Kingdom Hearts 2 had. Because Kingdom Hearts 3's level design is way better than 2. Like, undisputably. I don't see how anyone can argue with me on that. And yet I have seen people try to argue that 2 had better level design. And that just blows my mind. Like, really? That's great level design for you? Like, big open rooms with nothing in them? I mean, I'm not trying to be dismissive, but it does seem to me like these people had their blinders on, like, so hard that they're not they're not seeing the forest for the trees.
But that's
They're
also
they're too focused.
That's also if what you think if your idea of Kingdom, if you think Kingdom Hearts is about the action, then yeah, of course open levels are gonna be better because they lend
Sure.
themselves to action better. But if you think Kingdom Hearts is about exploring these worlds, maybe not. And it's this unwillingness of people to look at these games from different perspectives.
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yes.
Like, again, there is nothing wrong with appreciating those. There's nothing wrong with appreciating those games in those specific ways. That's great. Like, but I think there needs to be room for people to enjoy these games in a multitude of different ways and to be respectful of those different perspectives.
Right.
To go back into our famous segment, oh my god, they're talking about the Souls games again. I think the grass system...
Go for it.
I think the
for it.
grass system in Demon Souls is vastly superior to the Estes system.
Yeah, here we go again.
But like,
Here we go again.
But that's also, I wouldn't want the grass system in Demon Souls because I don't think the grass system would work in Demon Souls. No, would work in Dark Souls, I should say.
I was about to say, what? It's like the grass system wouldn't work in Demons. What?
No, but this specific system works, I think, in Demon Souls. But when Dark Souls is supposed to be like this sort of adventure where you get lost in the world, and without that central hub, like the Nexus, I don't totally buy that resource management is workable in a game like Dark Souls to the extent that it is workable in Demon Souls. So
I don't like the grass system, but I will agree with you that it works for what Demon Souls is trying to do.
Yes. And that's maybe, I don't know, see, that's Dark Souls, that's comparing and contrasting these games, which are very similar, which one of them tweaked what the other one did to make it work better for what it was setting out to do. And coming into Dark Souls with the perspective that, oh, this is just going to be another Demon Souls, that's the wrong approach. And for a game like Kingdom Hearts 3, that game sets out to do pretty much the same as Kingdom Hearts 2 did, right?
Yeah, I'd probably say that. I do think that Kingdom Hearts 2, I think the fact that the level design was that way shows that with Kingdom Hearts 2, they did want to expand on the combat. They did want to make it a bit more technical and, focus on the combat more. I think that's where their goals lied. But with Kingdom Hearts 3, they clearly didn't want to do that. I mean, there are some pretty spacious levels, but they're not nearly as condensed as something like Kingdom Hearts 1. And I think that just
3 was then more about just getting into the world and having those cinematic moments.
I think that you're right. Yeah, 3 was definitely more focused on exploration than Kingdom Hearts 2 was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do
agree
think
with
that the thing that we're all agreeing on is that games have different goals. Like there are, just because something is changed from one game to another, that doesn't mean that it automatically becomes a lesser game because maybe it fit the new type of game better.
Yes.
Yes.
And for Kingdom Hearts 3, even if the goal is exactly the same, experimenting with different approaches is better because otherwise you're just going to get Kingdom Hearts 2 again. And at that point, like, what's even the point then?
Right.
If that's all.
Yeah, just go back and play Kingdom Hearts 2.
I think that there is a sort of irritability where if something changes, the reasoning behind, people judge less the change itself and more the reasoning behind the changes. Like say with Devil May Cry 4, they removed all of that crazy inertia and reversal tech. Yeah. I can kind of tell this from members of the community in some cases that, oh, they didn't have this in Devil May Cry 5 and they used the resources that could have gone toward that on something that is less meaningful, I guess. And I think that's more a problem with understanding how game design works or how the game production actually functions than it is more about the criticism of the actual aspect that is removed in that case.
Yeah, I would say that inertia is probably, and I don't know this for sure, but it came across more to me like that was just a quirk of the Gamebryo engine that Capcom was using for Devil May Cry 4. And it's something that isn't in the RE engine that they've been using recently. I don't know for sure, but that's just kind of how it came across to me.
Yeah, I mean...
Because, like, inertia in Devil May Cry 4 isn't really an active part of the game. Like, if you're playing the game normally from start to finish, you know, inertia is not something in the tutorials. It's not something that really comes into play when you're trying to just do a combo. So, it just comes across like it's just part of the Gamebryo engine. And then people realized that it was there, and they decided to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think if folks understood more about what constitutes these game design decisions, and maybe were able to get some perspective on why these changes were made, I think that would settle down a lot of the animosity that people have towards not just members of the community, but towards developers themselves.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that the more people actually understand or understood how games were made, there would be a lot less toxicity.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a book I read, and the author is a bit contentious for some people. It's Jason Schreier. I know a lot of people don't like him.
He's the guy who looks like John Oliver on Twitter, isn't he?
He kind of does, actually.
Yeah, you're right. I personally don't have an issue with him, but regardless, he wrote a book called Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, which is a fantastic book, and I strongly urge everyone to read it. I don't care if you hate Jason Schreier, it deserves to be read, because it is a very focused portrayal of game development. He tackles, I believe, 10 different games from 10 different studios, and he explains the development history of each of those games. He conducted interviews with multiple developers to get an idea as to what happened during the development of these games, and he explains a lot about what it's like to make a game. And that, for me, cleared up so many misconceptions.
Yeah.
I remember I tried recommending it once on Twitter, and someone, I'm not going to say who, but just immediately dismissed the book because it was written by Jason Schreier. And I feel that's so just close-minded. Like, I get it, all right? You don't like the guy. Fine. But this is a unbiased work of journalism, right? He's not throwing out his politics. He's not doing anything like that.
Is that why people don't like him?
I don't know. I don't really know why people don't like him. I don't
is it because he looks like John Oliver and they're just confused?
Maybe that's it. I don't really focus. I don't follow him too closely. I don't focus on his politics or whatever. So I don't really know what people's issues with him are. But the point I'm trying to make is it is unbiased journalism. He is just conducting interviews. It's just him explaining how game development works. It's him explaining how the industry works. It's him explaining the relationship between developers and publishers. It's all really interesting and important in understanding all of this stuff.
Yeah,
and
not
I feel
everything is done in the games industry out of malice. I feel like a lot of folks just get the idea that something changed because someone was actively trying to antagonize someone. And I think that, like you said, having that perspective of what goes into it, it's not a way to just it's not to gauge sympathies, but to gain perspective, understanding how these things work and how. That's why it's good to, if you know a developer and you like their work, just usually they have like blog posts or they post on a website as an interview or something. It's just really interesting to see just what this all entails.
Yeah, I do feel like sometimes people misunderstand me and think that I'm trying to get them to feel sorry. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. It's just gaining perspectives. It's just about understanding. You can understand why something is bad and still not like it. I hate The Room. Like, I think that's a terrible movie. But I read the book the disaster artist about how the movie was made. I don't suddenly like the movie now. It's not about that. It's just about perspective and understanding.
Yes. Also, I would add to this, I am not a game developer, although I am working on like a little game. And I have learned so much from this. The most important thing is that the way it works in your head ain't the way it's going to work when you're playing it. Because you have this idea for a work that like it's completed, and trying to build up components for a completed work, it's really difficult. Because everything is going to go not perfectly the way you intended it, and you're never going to get the vision down 100%. So, you need to cut these developers some slack. It's difficult work.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think people really appreciate how hard it is to make a game. I think having that understanding, it goes a long way in becoming more empathetic, and it helps.
I also imagine that if the communication was a bit more compassionate, it could have been that they just signed to Capcom like, hey, like this is a Twitter account for people, or this is like a change.org or whatever, where there's a really vocal group of Devil May Cry players who want reversals. They want inertia to be in this game. Maybe if they are a bit less toxic in discussing it, they would maybe consider putting it in as like a feature. And then you can have the Devil May Cry you want. Which is probably not going to happen if people are just, oh, it's a shit game because it doesn't play exactly like I want it to.
Yeah.
So once again, everybody, be nice to each other. It's the lesson of the podcast.
Don't be dicks.
Yeah, right.
All right. I think we've exhausted this topic to its logical conclusion. Unless anyone else has something they want to add.
No, I think this was a good discussion. I think there was a lot to sort of understand about how these elements sort of come together and how the perception of these elements work. So,
yes,
agreed. Yeah. Okay, so before we head out, we're gonna talk about some stuff that we're working on. So Acer, what's up? You got anything in the pipeline?
I've got that Demon Souls video I've been threatening you guys with for a few weeks now. I've got that in the pipeline.
Cool beans.
And I threw it out. First of all, let me just say, Twitter is actually inferior to that YouTube post system where you just throw up a message to all your subscribers. It's so good. You just throw them a poll, like, hey, what do you guys want covered next? And they really interact with you, which is weird. But I threw them a questionnaire a couple of weeks ago where I basically said, I can either make one 40, 50, 60 minute long Demon Souls video, or I could make two, and one of them is just going to be a comprehensive lore breakdown. Because I haven't been able to find like a comprehensive lore breakdown. I've seen like, here's the story of a land, here's the story of Ostrava, but there's no
Vati video.
Yeah, but he didn't make any video which is like Demon Souls at like from beginning to end. This is what is going on in this world. And I thought I threw him a questionnaire like, hey, if it will take more time, but I could do that if you guys want, and they wanted it. So I guess I'm making 2 Demon Souls videos.
I'm currently working on part 1 of my Tales of Zestiria video series. That's going to be painful. Because it's like one of my least favorite games in the series, and it's going to be a big video. Well, it's going to be multiple videos. It's going to be a 4-part video series. The first part's going to be talking about like world and level design. So that's going to be fun. I'm contemplating whether like in between the parts, if I'm going to upload like other videos, or if I'm just going to try and do all 4 of them in one go. I'm not really sure, but the next video will be that part 1, just to get it out there because, man, I'm tired of that game. I need to exercise it from my life. I also I technically do have another video in the pipeline, which is about the beginner's guide, but I had a friend of mine, because he really wanted to edit the video, so I was like, yeah, sure, you can edit it, and unfortunately, a lot of complications happened with him, so he hasn't been able to complete it, so I don't know when that will happen. I expected this video to be done like months ago, and in his defense, his wife went into surgery, so I can't really complain. Like, I'm like, hey man, that's way more important than my dumb video, so don't even worry about it. But there is a lot of uncertainty with when that video is going to be finished.
If his wife went in for surgery, surely he would have more free time to edit, though.
No. He's going to be spending that time in the hospital with her.
Yeah, but well. There's going to be less distraction if he just decided to edit instead. Maybe you should tell him that.
No. That's very rude.
Sorry. I was trying to be cute.
You're not cute at all. Very homely, actually. Alex, what do you got in the pipeline?
I really don't know. Like, I got a few ideas that I'm kind of bouncing around. I need to basically start a game to start capturing footage, but aside, I'm kind of in that period where, okay, you released a new video, time to just kind of sit on some other ideas first. So yeah. I can't really say anything specific, but I have a few ideas and we'll see how they turn out.
Yeah, whenever I finish a video, I'm always like, oh, good, finally. I don't want to work on any videos for a while now. Like, especially the last video I made, I really didn't want to do nothing after that.
It always feels like you...
Yes.
I know that was a real punch of agony for you.
Yeah. An hour and 40 minutes. It was brutal, but, I did it. I feel like a champ at getting it out. The reception to it was very nice. I was just happy seeing so many people going like, oh my God, you did a video on school days. And it was actually like a serious video. Like it wasn't just you dunking on it. You actually like made a serious consideration about like what the show is trying to do.
I also know this pain. It's like you're climbing a mountain and you finally reach the top, and it's you can see that there's more of the mountain to climb. It was a fake top, but you're just in that moment like, no, I want to enjoy reaching this cliff.
Right.
Just let me enjoy the view, then I'll climb the next mountain. Just give me a bit.
I'll remind you of this. I lost 3 months of work on my last video, and then I had to redo it, which took another 2 months.
Oof. The Silent Hill 3 one, right?
Yeah.
Brutal.
I am not touching Silent Hill, the franchise, again for a while.
I will say, though, I really liked your Silent Hill 3 video, and it did inspire me to want to replay Silent Hill 4 in particular, just because that game is absurdly interesting. And even though on a technical level it's like the weakest of the initial 4, it's
conceptually
just utterly fascinating.
Yeah.
But anyways,
and Boken,
that's pretty much
is
it.
probably working on becoming a Street Fighter master or a Pokemon master.
Yeah, probably. He's like doing yoga in a mountain or something. Just
it's
channeling his inner chi so he can master Chun-Li. I don't even know if Chun-Li's his main. Probably not. It's probably Sagat or something. I don't know.
That's so Boken or something.
All right.
It's Boken. He's here. Hello, guys. It's me. I am currently becoming a Street Fighter master. He was here the whole time, guys. You can just edit that. You can just edit that unfunny joke out of the video, right?
Just because you asked me to edit it out, I'm gonna make sure it stays in.
That's fine.
Shouldn't have done it.
That's fine.
All right, that's it, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. I want to thank Alex for joining us. Right before we sign out, though, Alex, why don't you tell everyone how to find you?
You can find me at youtube.com/postmesmeric. And twitter.com/PostMesmeric. I try to routinely keep folks up to date on progress on projects. So just stop by.
Cool beans. All right. That's it, everyone. This has been Essays and Espresso. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.